Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 27, 2020. My name is Karen Bodenschatz, and I serve as Associate Pastor at First Lutheran Church in Onalaska, and you have found my morning musing. Welcome to the beautiful fire. So you may have noticed, if you've been participating in worship this last month, that we have been singing the song, or parts of it, for everyone born every week. Just a verse or two, depending on the service. And this week, we sang verse 4, which is probably the verse that stretches me the most, reminds me so clearly of what it means when we say all are welcome. It goes like this: for just and unjust, a place at the table, abuser abused with need to forgive, in anger, in hurt, a mindset of mercy, for just and unjust, a new way to live. And then, of course, the refrain, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. So this verse, the first line, for just and unjust, a place at the table, has been going through my head over and over again in these past few days. And in my most human moments, and maybe just my normal human moments, I don't like this verse. I don't want the unjust to be at the table with me. I don't want to sit down and break bread with those who I think are doing terrible things that go against everything I believe. I just don't. But then the Holy Spirit, she reminds me that I too can fall into the unjust category with my actions and my words, that I too am a sinner and fall short of the glory of God. And even though I think there are people that are more unjust than me, they are welcome at the table as much as I am. I remember listening to a podcast where Rachel Held Evans was the guest, and the hosts challenged her on this very idea. They were having a conversation about what it means that all are welcome at the table. They really wanted to know if she would welcome the unjust, they used names, but I'm not going to the table, to share in the Holy Supper with them. And she said yes, because that is the radical nature of God's love. And I remember being like the hosts and just being kind of letting that sink in. It really stretched them. It stretches me. I know it stretches most of us. We want to be able to sort people into groups that clearly delineate just, unjust, us, them. God's table, however, God's love, indeed does not make such delineations. And if we go down the road of deciding who is allowed and who is not, then we better stop preaching and teaching and living as if Jesus matters to the world. Which is our challenge, right? Every moment of every day, we are called to the radical abundance of God's love that says all are welcome at the table. All are loved by God. And living in that grace, we have to figure out how to sit down next to those whom we don't agree with, whom we cannot stand to listen to, whom every fiber of our being cries out against. And that is our call into a deeper faith. I'm not saying that this means we don't fight for injustice or that we don't fight against evil, because those things are present in our lives and our world in abundance. And I'm not saying that we tell people to be quiet, to stop protesting, to stop speaking out, to stop screaming at the top of their lungs for reform, to just tell them, well, just be nice. Quite the opposite. If we concede that all are welcome at the table, if we trust in God's love for all people, even though it doesn't always make sense to us, then instead of quieting those voices, we listen and we confess the ways that perhaps we have become unjust, and we live in God's grace, and we join the work of justice as we have been called to. See why this is so challenging? It just calls us to harder things. And in this week leading up to the election, we're going to be challenged over and over again to remember the expansiveness of God's love and the call that we are to join that expansiveness, to resist the temptation of putting people into categories of us and them, to resist believing the stereotypes and the tropes so many like to use to easily dismiss one group or another, to be prayerful and thoughtful about how we interact with each other, to imagine that there is indeed a new way to live, grounded in the teachings of Jesus that calls all to the table in love. At First Lutheran, we are calling for a day of prayer on November 3rd. So you can participate in two ways. You can sign up to be a part of the prayer vigil that starts at 5 a.m. and ends at midnight. And I will include a link to the sign up below in the description, somewhere down there. And you can participate in one of the 4 prayer services we will be hosting and live streaming that day. They are at 6 a.m., noon, 6:15 p.m., which will be holding evening prayer, and then 9:45 p.m. Let's bathe the day and ourselves in prayer this election day, trusting in God above all things. Of course, I hope you are praying for our country and for our fellow citizens each day this whole week, but we will particularly be focused in our prayers next Tuesday. Until then, be well, be kind, for Christ is with you.